9.5 Solving quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. The real solution of the quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals r, by using the quadratic formula. Okay, so we have what the equation is. So in a way you kind of can see we have b, a, and c within our equations. So all you're going to do is substitute for whatever number is given to you into the equation. But before we start working on that, there's some few points that you need to remember. A can never equal to 0. Meaning, if I was to substitute this with 0, we will have what? Anything divided. We know that anything divided by 0. Remember, you have A over B, where B cannot equal 0. Why? You can have A divided by 0 will give you a undefined number, correct? But if we have 0 divided by b, we know that it's going to be 0. So therefore, anything divided by 0, that's why a cannot equal 0. And b squared minus 4a squared needs to be greater than or less than 0. Why? Because if you have this equal less, it could be 0, remember, this can be 0, but it cannot be less than 0. Anything less than 0 will be your negative numbers, right? A negative integer. And we know that and this is, you remember, this is an index of 2. So no two numbers multiply, or factors multiply together, will give you a negative number. So that's why that inside of it, which is, you could say the radical, needs to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. Another thing is, always make sure, let me write this down, always make sure that your quadratic equation is in standard form. Remember, we learned this before. Standard form meant the highest degree to the lowest. All right, that needs to be in standard form. If not, you're going to be getting A differently, B and C differently. It's you kind of confuse yourself unless you really know it, but it's better to always have it in standard form. You notice here, all I did was copy the equation here in the corner so I could kind of remember. So let's first figure this out. I know 2 is A, B is -5, and 3 is going to be C. So let's plug in everything into my quadratic formula. X equals negative. Notice I am going to keep my negative, but I'm going to put B into parentheses. And this B is actually -5. Okay? Plus or minus, go of -5 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3, which is C. And I'm left with 2 times 2. All I did is plug in the numbers from here to my formula. Okay, let's solve this now. X equals negative times a -5 gives me +5 plus or minus. -5 squared gives me 25. -4 times 2 is -8. And -8 times 3 gives me -24. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm just going to continue solving. X equals 5 plus or minus radical of 1 over 4. And we know that the perfect square of 1 is just 1. So I'm left with X equals 5 plus or minus 1 over 4. I'm going to separate this over here so you guys can see it. Now I'm left with X equals 5 plus 1 over 4. X equals 5 minus 1 over 4. And we know that 5 plus 1 is 6 over 4. X simplified gives me 3 over 2. 4 minus 5 is 4. I'm sorry, 4 minus 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. And over 4x equals 1. And that's your answer for using the quadratic formula when given a quadratic equation. Let's work some stuff here. Let's work it out. This is a. There's an imaginary 1. Okay, it's not x. It's an imaginary 1 because how many x's you have? X squares you have? Only 1. B is negative 6. And C is 5. Let's get ready to plug in. We have x equals negative times negative 6 plus or minus negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5 over 2 times 1. X equals negative and negative gives me positive 6 plus or minus 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 5 gives me negative 20 over 2. X equals 6 plus or minus 36 minus 20 gives me 16 over 2. X equals, I know the perfect square of 16 is 4. 6 plus or minus 4 over 2. Allow us to separate this over here. We're left with x equals 6 plus 4 over 2. X equals 6 minus 4 over 2. 6 plus 4 is 10 over 2. X equals 5. X equals 6 minus 4 is 2 over 2. X equals 1. And those are your two answers. I know you see a fraction and you guys start thinking, oh no, it's going to be hard. Actually, no. Halves are actually easy. So anything divided by half will give you half of the number it is. So we know this is going to be A. Let me do it another color. A, imaginary 1, and C. Plug in our formula. X equals negative times 1 plus or minus 1 square minus 4 times half times negative 10 divided by 2 times half. X equals negative times 1 gives me negative 1 plus or minus 1 square is 1. Negative 4 times half is negative 2. And negative 2 times negative 10 gives me positive 20. And 2 times half is just 1. X equals negative 1 plus or minus 21 over 1. Now this, anything divided by itself by 1 is going to be the number itself. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus radical of 21. I'm going to have you guys leave it like this because, again, we're not using calculators. So just simplify it where you're solving for x. Okay, number 3 again. Let's determine everything. A is negative 3, B is 2, and 7 is C. Plug in our formula. X equals negative times B, which is 2, plus or minus 2 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times 7 over 2 times negative 3. Start simplifying this. We have x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 gives me positive 12, and 12 times 7 gives me plus 84, and 2 times negative 3 becomes negative 6. X equals negative 2 plus or minus 88 over negative 6. Obviously, if we break down the negative 8, we know that the negative 88, I'm sorry, I know we could have 22 times 4, which gives us 88, and the perfect square of 4 would be 2. But we're not going to simplify this. We're going to leave it like this. But before that, there is ways that we can continue to make this, because we know that a negative and negative gives you a positive, right? But negative 2 over negative 6 will gives you positive. 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. And negative 6 divided by the 2, it's going to give you 3, plus or minus 88. And that will be your answer. Okay, number 4. We have here now where C is on the other side. This is the quadratic formula. We're not completing squares, so we need to move this over for equal to 0. So we're left with 4x minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Because remember, all we did was add plus 1 on both sides. This cancels out to 0, and we're left with this. Now we can determine that 4 is A, B is negative 4, and C is 1. Using our equation, x equals negative times B, which is negative 4, plus or minus 4 times, I'm sorry, not 4. B squared, which is negative 4 squared, minus 4 times 4 times 1 over 2 times 4. Start simplifying this. We have x equals positive 4 plus or minus negative 4 squared is 16 minus negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 times 1 gives me negative 16. I already have put the 0. 2 times 4 is 8. And we know that this is going to become x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 0 over 8. Separate it more over here. The perfect square of 0 is going to be 0. X equals 4 plus or minus 0 over 8. And this gives me x equals 4 plus 0 over 8. X equals 4 minus 0 over 8. X plus 4 plus 0 is 4, and 4 over 8 is just stays 4 over 8. Gives me simplified half. And the same with this, 4 minus 0 is 4, and we know 4/8 is the same as half. So in reality, x equals